I'm Hakeem from the Cavalier Daily Multimedia. Today, we have student council candidates for Vice President for Organizations, Neil Branch and Jalen Ross. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you guys for tuning in. So, today, we're just going to talk about, your candidacy, your platforms, but I want to start by just talking about you guys. So, why don't you tell me your name, what your major is, what year you are, and what you're involved with here at the university.
Okay. So my name's Neil Branch, and I'm a third year in the government major and public policy major in the Batten School. So in terms of my involvements at the university, I currently serve as Vice President for Organizations, the position I'm seeking re-election for. And then I'm also involved in residence life. I'm an RA in Brown College, and then I'm also a member of Catholic Student Ministry.
Hey, I'm Jalen Ross. I'm a second year actually in the engineering school. So I kind of venture out of the standard engineering school thing to do this kind of thing. I've been involved in the student council right from the beginning, from when I first got here, working on committee, and now as a representative for the engineering school. There I work on the solar car team as well. We're building a solar powered car. And then I also work on compete on the mock trial team.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This first question is for you, Neil. What do you actually do as Vice President for Organizations, or as they call it, VPO?
Okay. So one of the most important functions is the funding process. There's student activities fee funding to allocate, so that's over $500,000 to allocate to CIOs. And it's important that, it's in a fair process, and that you have to realize how important and what such a big impact this has on organizations. But it's not just about funding, it's also about support and really making the lives of student leaders on grounds easier. So part of that is initiatives I've started is this past year's working currently on a universal student calendar. So something that students could look on one website rather than going through multiple areas and sources. Just one website, find out what's happening that day, divided by category, and then also it'd make it easier for student leaders with advertising. And I think that's the type of services we really need to look at, is the financial side, but also support, and also being at the end of the day a representative for the students.
So what's a typical day for you?
Okay, so a typical day, of course, is really answering emails and really getting whatever concerns that CIOs have answered, and really working to clear up any sort of questions they may have about the process. Anyone who works with me, or any of my friends, can tell you meetings is a big part of the day. So, meeting with CIO leaders, one important aspect is meeting with new applicants for CIOs. And that's always, great discussion to hear these sort of new, bold ideas from all different schools, all different ages. And just helping them get their organization off the ground and well running. So that's a big part of it. And then also meeting with groups about financial, getting them on utilizing student activities fee, and then also meeting with constituents to work on different referendum and seeing how we can best serve them as representatives from student council.
So what made you interested in the role last year?
Okay, so I think the one thing is seeing that while there was a vice president for organizations, it was a position that, the person, had not been as active in different communities, or at least I felt that I didn't know really a lot of members of student council. And so that's one thing I want to really change from day one, is really be involved with the different CIOs and really show my support in any way I can. And that's an important aspect, is really working so that I've come to various events, share my support, and really, what is an hour of my time for, the hours that student leaders put in. So I think that's a big part. And then also with the funding process, really wanting to make it easier and also make the funding process more effective.
So Janet, what makes you interested in this role?
Absolutely. People ask me that all the time, and what I always answer is, whenever someone asks me what it is that I like about the university, I always tell them that it's the size. It's kind of the medium size where you know a bunch of people, but you don't know everyone. But then the second part of that is we managed somehow to have the opportunity of a 60,000 person school packed in a 14,000 person one. I think the reason we can do that is we've got students that are so engaged and so active, and the way they do that is with CIOs. So that's what really drew me to the position in student council that works with CIOs, that helps them do what they do in all sorts of ways.
So you're challenging the incumbent, obviously. What makes you qualified for this role?
Well, sure. So, I think I've seen the VPO process from the inside and the outside. From the outside, I've been treasurer for 2 different CIOs now. And what I can do from there is be able to tell you what it's like from the CIO point of view. So I've seen the appropriations process and the support process from the CIO standpoint. So I know what's confusing, what's hard, where there's not enough support, and what CIOs need every day. And for somebody whose job it is to work for CIOs, I think it's critically important that you kind of understand where they're coming from on that. But for the last year, I've also been on student council as an engineering school rep, so I've seen the process from the other side as well. The VPO has to present CIOs and recommendations to the general body. Any appeals from appropriations come to the general body. So I've kind of seen it from both sides of the position.
So, Neil, what makes you deserve our vote? Why should you remain in office? What have you done over the past year?
Okay, so I think, one thing that's, when the VPO, you're talking about funding, is I've allocated fairly and really tried to be as effective with the funding as possible. So, while it's not currently a perfect system, I'm working to improve it. And really, that's the thing is that, I have the institutional knowledge. I've seen what works and what doesn't. I've seen the challenges and the successes from CIOs. I want to just continue for the next year to help make life easier for students on grounds.
So what's your platform specifically for next year?
So I think a big part is streamlining. So this past year, one of the big challenges has been, for example, reserving space. And currently it's under a system where you have 2 different offices reserving space. You have sort of long wait times to get a response, and then also sometimes things are bumped around last minute. I think we owe it to our student leaders to really have a system that's better response rates, and then also makes that system easier. So I think that's one of the big things. Another thing is funding, really looking at moving to a more incentive-based process. So really pulling out those details about, co-sponsorship, looking at, who has the longevity, and then also rewarding, new and innovative ideas. I think that's an important part. I guess there's other things that you can find on, my event, the specific platform, but I think one thing, pulling away from the VPO technical side of things I would like to talk about is, also being responsive to the students. And I think, a big part is, representative student council, you're here to represent all students. And frankly, that's something I think student council could do a lot better on. And I think what that starts is by looking at what communities have been overlooked or, been in the shadows by student council. I think a great example of that is the graduate community. So this past year I've worked with the Darden representative and representatives from the law school and sort of working with CIOs from those areas and getting them to utilize more student activities fee funding. That's just one example, but also it's continuous dialogue about how we can best serve the graduate community. And beyond all those and the other communities that are overlooked, I think it's making this university better and really making this university for everyone. And I think it's unfortunate this past year we've had incidences of hate crimes and attacks on our students that it hasn't been a safe community. And so really working with groups like the White Ribbon Campaign on raising awareness about sexual assault and domestic violence, but also working with groups like QSU and really making sure that it's a safe space for all students.
So Jalen, what's your platform? What are you going to do differently from Neil? We're going to elect you to change something.
Absolutely. So my platform falls into 3 little catchphrases I've developed. First one is serious support. The next one's bold solutions and real transparency. So we can go through each one of those 3. The first one's about serious support. So I've said before, the VPO role for a long time has been mostly centered on funding. I think, like I've said, from the CIO point of view, there's a lot of room for the VPO to help CIOs do what they do better. For the top 10 or 20 CIOs that do a lot of stuff around grounds, maybe just funding is enough. But for the other 800 that we have, there are a lot of things they need to know, want to know, need help doing that they don't have right now. So one of the things that I have specific plans laid out is starting to do workshops. Bring in experts on budgeting or on web design, on advertising. They can help those CIOs that are kind of upstarts, that haven't really gotten the premier status yet, get to where everybody else is, get to where they want to be. The next one is bold solutions to our money problem. So if you look at how we allocate funds right now, basically everyone gets the same percentage of funding, but that percentage is down to about 20%. And a system where everybody gets 20% doesn't work for anyone that's involved. So what we need to do is take a serious look at how we're allocating our money, what we're doing with that money, to figure out how we can better serve the CIOs that need it. Because as it stands now, basically, what we're saying to our CIOs is that we respect your existence, but we can't actually fund what you want to do. So actually what we should do here is look to our peer institutions. There are other schools across the country, even in this state, that have systems that have been proven to work, I think, better than ours. If you look at Virginia Tech and at William & Mary, they've got systems where they share the costs of their club sports with rec sports and athletics departments in the administration. I think that's something we seriously need to look at because club sports account for about 50% of the spending that we make. We also need to look at things like, again, at William & Mary. What they do is they say, here's a system of points. And if you meet regularly, if you have lots of involvement from the student body, if you have co-sponsorships, all those kinds of things, we'll give you points for it. We'll recognize that you're doing the great work a CIO should do. And then what happens is based on those points, which are clearly defined and available for everyone to see before the process, that factors into how much money you get later on. I think the danger with kind of just trying to decide how good a CIO's application for funds are is that it makes student council kind of choose who's good and who's not, what they value, what they don't. I don't think that's kind of the role of student council. I think we can do that with a better system. And then finally, real transparency. I mean, I think everybody hears this, whether it's national or school elections all the time, right? We need transparency. But look, there are simple, very simple steps we can take that drastically increase the transparency. One of the things I have on my website right now is a list that I had to dig up from inside business services of who got allocated what in 2010. That's the only thing I could find online. And what that means is basically that all the students at the university who pay $44 a year to fund student organizations have no idea where that money's going. I think that's unacceptable. That's something that I do on day one is put the list of allocations that I'd be making right in the student council website. It's something the students deserve and something I think they should have.
Awesome. Why don't you guys give me your 30-second closing speech? Jalen, why don't you go first?
Sure. Like I said, well, I haven't said this actually, I'm an engineer. So my entire education is based around making things work. And that's something that I want to bring to this position. I think it's time we start expecting more from our VPO. A VPO that wants to make those bold steps to fix the system we have. A VPO that wants to institute real transparency. And a VPO that's dedicated to supporting all of the independent organizations and the students that he's elected to represent. Now, I've got concrete plans to make all of that happen and start on day one. And I really appreciate your support next week.
Yeah.
Well, this past year I've enjoyed, working with all the student leaders and CIOs on grounds. And it's clear that the CIO experience is really what makes the university experience. And with the institutional knowledge and the relationships I've built over this past year, I'd like to continue the work to make the funding process more effective, to offer more support to different communities, and to offer support to the CIOs, and really just continue a great year, another great year with bold solutions and really reforming the process.
Well, you've heard it from the candidates themselves. For more information about their respective platforms, visit them on their respective websites and on their Facebook events. Now make sure you go to uvavote.com starting next Monday, February 25th to vote for who you think will be the best VPO candidate. I'm Hakeem from Cavalier Daily Multimedia, and thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out our other videos on the site.